Good afternoon. Happy Sunday, September 21st, I believe it is. Let's see. No, 22nd, 22nd. Beautiful day. I don't need these, so I can take these off. In fact, turn them off. There we go. So I hope everybody's having a good day. We are finally getting some well-needed rain here in Oklahoma. Finally getting some rain. All right, so we were talking about shadow working yesterday and we didn't finish it. There's more to go over. So maybe as children we would get mad, get sent to your room, teachers would shame you, which was terrible, but they did it. Peers would mock you. That's terrible. That's bullying. These conflicts threaten one of those basic needs of security, self-worth. We then adjust our behavior to gratify our needs, and we adapt to the external world. Basically, that means that we stop doing what we're doing and we try to conform to what mom and dad want or teachers want. And we lose a part of ourselves in doing that, which is bad. And that part of yourself that you lose goes to the dark side. The first 20 years is said to be formative years, and all the stuff we discarded gets bundled and swept into the personal unconsciousness. We can't eliminate the shadow. It stays with us as our dark brother or sister. Trouble arises when we don't see it. We need to look for the signs. And again, don't forget, if you haven't looked up the book yet, Little Book of the Human Shadow by Robert Bly. And remember, there is no light without shadow and no psychic wholeness without imperfections. Because we're all imperfect human beings, people. And if you ignore the shadow, this is the cost. Ancient Greeks understood the need to honor all parts of the psyche. They worshiped the autonomous gods and goddesses. Greeks knew a god or goddess you ignored became the one who turned against you. Absolutely. If you ignore a god, they're going to turn against you. If you look at Buddhism, and I have, it makes sense. It really does. Buddhism teaches you to be mindful of what you're doing. Be mindful when you're walking, when you're talking, when you're eating, when you're sleeping. When you're doing anything, be mindful. Be aware of what's going on. Because sometimes we're not, and we just walk. We just walk. We eat. We don't. And basically what that means to me, anyway, enjoy that walk. Enjoy the food. So you deliberately take a bite, taste it, enjoy it. And in doing that, you feed yourself, you feed your soul, you feed your mind. You feed all of you. That's what is needed. That's what we all need to do. Because we haven't been. most of us, we just go along life, la 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 la. Okay. Any part we disown or dishonor turns on us like a hungry cat. I can understand that. I can understand that. If you, for whatever reason, don't go for your walk in a mindful manner, you just walk, your body knows that you're not being true to yourself, that you're just going along for the ride. We can't do that because the body will hurt you. It will hurt you if you if you don't believe in it, if you disown it. And what'll happen? Well, this is what happened to me. I went for a walk and didn't care what I was doing, and I must have stepped some way, and now my lower back hurts. That's probably because I was not being mindful. And remember, the personal shadow represents the collection of these disowned parts. So we have to be careful because you don't want a whole lot of unknown parts, unowned parts. The problem, the shadow archetype can operate largely independently without our awareness. And that's good. That's true. But we need to be honest with ourselves and keep drugs out of the equation. Because if you do that, you'll cover up the consciousness and let the unconscious self take over. And that's not good. Because that turns us into toxic people. And nobody wants to be toxic. There are people that are toxic. They don't believe they are, but they are. We all know them. It's like the shadow self pulls the solid self like a puppet on strings. And you want to be able to be your own self. Because you want to get rid of that negativity, because that's basically all that stuff is negativity. Is your pseudo self is a bunch of negative thoughts. And when we're divorced from the shadow archetype, we do things we wouldn't voluntarily do and later regret that we did them. Like, my son and I got into an argument the other night. And he gets so on my nerves sometimes. I know he's trying to help. I know he's trying to help me become a better person. But sometimes, and I know he doesn't mean to do it, but he pushes the buttons. And I try not to react, but unfortunately, unfortunately I do. And we get into shouting matches. I hate it. Ex-husband and I used to do that all the time, and I hated it. I hate shouting matches. They're not good for anybody. And because you do those things with the pseudo self, and the shadow has taken over, you get to feeling anxious and depressed. And you tend to engage in self-sabotaging and self-loathing for not doing what you were supposed to do. Swing from ego inflation, grandiosity, or ego deflation, insecurity. Our ego is a balloon or a tire of a wheelbarrow or trailer. And you tend to act self-absorbed, like you're not aware of what's going on around you, not aware of how your behaviors and actions influence others. You have low self-esteem yourself because there's just so much conflict in your mind and body with the pseudo self taking over, that it's hard. I won't say hard, but it's difficult to get past it. And the only way I can think of for you to get past it is to stay on the positive side and keep that negative stuff in the shadows. That's where it belongs. It does not belong out here in the real world. It belongs in the bad world, for lack of a better explanation of what it's called. But to me, I call it hell, because it was. It was a living hell. What I was living through before I started the journaling and taking care of myself. Let's see. You have low self-esteem because of a persistent, critical inner voice that's always telling you, you're stupid, shut up, go to hell. That's my inner self. Always. And I have to shut it down. Remaining unconscious of the shadow hurts our relationship with our families and friends. It impacts our professional relationships as well as our leadership abilities. And that is true. That is so true. I had a great job with AmerisourceBergen, and I did good at it until I became a team lead. I had so much turmoil in my brain, in my body, in myself, over the job, family, my spouse and his sex-crazed activities. I really couldn't function. They never should have put me in a supervisory position. I will admit that. Never should have been put in that position. Should have just stayed as a rep. And I would have stayed there until they shut us down. But I had to, think I could do it all. Yeah, I can't. I didn't. I blew it. When we don't know our shadow, we engage in a never-ending cycle of self-deception. Self-deception and self-destruction. You lie to yourself about things. And I did. I did before I started shadowing. I lied to myself all the time. Oh, husband's gonna quit being mean. Husband's gonna do better. Ah, excuse me. But it's just proof that it doesn't happen. You know, you can fool yourself thinking for 35 years that somebody's going to change. If they ain't right when you find them, girls, they'll never be right. Don't try to change them. You can't. But these guys are conniving. He made me change. I couldn't change him, but he changed me, and he changed me for the worst. Like I said, I got all this because I gained weight in hopes of not having to do what he wanted me to do. But it didn't work. He still insisted that I do other guys, have sex with them. I didn't want it. I didn't need it. The ego sees itself one way, but behaves and thinks and feels differently. That is so true. Our ego is way messed up. We really shouldn't have such an ego, if you ask me. I was checking my blood sugar. Still not doing good. But it's okay. So ultimately, and yeah, this makes sense, self-deception occurs when you divorce from your shadow and you just ignore it. And that's what I did up until a year ago when I finally started shadowing, started learning about myself. Think of bullies, a boy or a man who sees himself as a strong and brave, while from deep-rooted insecurity, fears, and cowardice. The bigger the shadow, the less he or she knows of themselves, more unconscious. With less self-knowledge comes more self-deception. Informed dishonesty becomes a way of being, a required mechanism for maintaining rules and beliefs about oneself. The problem with internal dishonesty, it arrests developmentally, steals internal growth and psychological development, and that's true. During this conflict, a psychic war occurs, and you become a Jekyll and Hyde. Oh, have I been Jekyll and Hyde so many times? I don't like it. I like to be just one. What happens when you repress your shadow? Projection. When we deny a quality in ourselves or one we see in others, we're displacing one's emotions, impulses, or qualities on another person. It's ego protection. We're always trying to protect ourselves, protect our ego. Make the ego not so out there. You know, like if if we get irritated when someone's rude, there's a good chance you haven't owned your own rudeness. Yes, they were being rude to you, but if rudeness wasn't in you, in your shadow self, you probably wouldn't be bothered by it so much. These projections distort reality, creating a boundary between our perception and who we are. So what do y'all think about that? Leave me some comments on your thoughts on what I've spoken today. Because I want to get back for the last 10 minutes and talk about my life story, how I got to this point, because some of you may not have listened to all the other posts that I've put out there. But I was born September 18 of 1953. My parents loved me. They cared for me. I had a brother and sister, younger than me. Mark and I were like two peas in a pod. We were always together. Susie was, she was Susie. She stayed in the background. And that's okay. We all didn't get along anyway, so we tried. But, so Mark, Susie, Mommy, and Daddy, and I moved from Glendive, Montana to Casper, Wyoming. And that's where I grew up from first grade to eighth grade. I enjoyed school. I had friends in school. I had friends on our block. We had lots of friends. It was in the day and age where kids come home from school, go outside and play after you get your homework done. And we never really had homework. Not like kids today get. Jeez, oh Pete. Little kids are getting homework like a junior high student would get. And yeah, junior high is what high school. It's just, it's nuts. It's nuts. These kids are growing up too fast. And they need to slow it down a little bit. I know they have a lot to learn. But if they're only learning, if they're not playing, if they're not having fun, that's not a childhood. That's a lack of a better understanding. That's more like an orphanage, because in an orphanage, that's what kids did. They went to school and they came home and went to work. They didn't have playtime. And now these kids today aren't getting much playtime because they go to school. Then they have to have at least one extracurricular activity, whether it's within the school system or outside the school system. It's just nuts. And I know they want these kids to be active. And they are. But let them be kids. You know, they're just not kids anymore. They're, lack of a better explanation, young adults. But these young kids, I feel for them. They have a hard road ahead of them because as many kids as there are, there's not that many jobs. For all the adults to be working and the kids to be working, what are you doing? You're just making them grow up too fast. Way too fast. I think that's wrong. We need to let kids be kids. But anyway, so we lived in Casper, Wyoming until the 8th grade. Mom and Dad had some marriage issues. Got a divorce in 68. Mom, Mark, Susie, and I moved to Ardmore, Oklahoma, and went to school there for 1 year. And then my senior year, or my sophomore year, we moved to Norman, Oklahoma. And I was there until I graduated in May of 72. So I was here for 3 years in school. Had boyfriends. Was sexually assaulted in high school by friends of my boyfriend in high school. Needless to say, he was no longer my boyfriend after that. I met somebody else who was very nice and very kind. And he drove a Super Bee. Coolest car. Cool car. But he and I dated, and we got married. Everybody thought we had to get married, thought I was pregnant. But Tara didn't show up for 3 years. So I didn't. And that marriage lasted, let's see, we got married in 72. I believe it was about let's see, she was born in 76, so it was 78, early in 78 that we divorced. And I then met Wayne, and we'll discuss more about that when on my next visit. And the reason Junior and I split up was because he made fun of people that went to church. We weren't church-going people, but I could not understand why somebody would make fun of people going to church. That's a good thing. They should be going to church. Shoot, maybe if we'd been going to church, maybe we wouldn't have divorced. Maybe we could have worked out our differences. But we'll never know that, because he's gone. And yeah, I don't want any more men in my life. I know that sounds terrible, but I don't. Been married 3 times, don't need no more. So on that note, peace, and love. Take care of yourselves. Be smart. Girls, remember, there are lots of fish in the sea. And some of those fish are going to be good fish. Just have to be patient until you find the right one that believes like you, and you all get along and love each other. Then think about getting married. But think a little bit longer, okay? Don't just automatically go do it. Okay. Love y'all. Have a good one. Bye-bye.